Okay, Mr. Manager, it's on you.
We're just paying you for repairs.
You're out of luck.
Yeah. I didn't even get to touch that one.
Okay.
Don't put that in there. I didn't hear it.
Call a special meeting to order for April 30th, 2015, Spring City Council. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody have a cell phone? Would you kindly turn it to mute or if you're expecting an emergency call? Thank you.
We wouldn't want to tie up the fire chief. I'll be back.
Roll call vote. Mr. Clark. Here. Mr. Hopkins. Here. Mrs. Nixon.
Here.
Mrs. Powell.
Here.
Mr. Truesdale. Here. Mrs. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Hall is here. Public forum. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and the public hearing portion of the agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment and not act on the public's comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If, after communication with the city manager or results has reached, the concerns will be elevated to the mayor, then elevated to the city council for action. The citizens wish to speak on the agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none. I will entertain a motion of approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or?
So moved. Support.
So moved and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unfinished business. Motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between the city and North Country Trail Association's second consideration. I believe everyone has one passed out. Is there anyone that does not understand what this is about? We discussed it last month's meeting. Mr. Clark, you wish to add or address anything on this? Seems how.
The only, that's not really an addition or change that needs to be made. I think it was Carolee Cole that shared with me that Chuck, what's his name, Vaness, was very agreeable to what we had suggested, and he was even willing to change the 90 days at the end there to 30. So, but there's no need to do that. The attorney didn't have any problems with that, and the city manager didn't have any problem with that.
So we're good. The city attorney had reviewed this before we had gotten it. He was okay with that.
So, Mr. Mayor, would you like a motion?
I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I will make a motion to approve the memo of understanding between the city and the North Country Trail Association.
Support. We have support. Now, discussion. Members wish to discuss or?
Just like to say that I'm really excited that this is coming to our community.
Hopefully, this will open up some opportunities, some grants. That's, I think, the big deal with it. But any other discussion? I will entertain a roll call vote. Mr. Powell.
Yes.
Truesdale.
Yes.
Mr. Mrs. Nixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Conley.
Yes.
Mr. Perry. Yes. Mr. Potter.
Yes.
All votes yes. Motion carried.
I don't have my cheat sheet tonight with me, so my printer didn't print. Okay, moving on, we have a update on USDA project.
Turn over light.
Oh,
Notes here a minute. Last Wednesday, we took bids for the USDA project.
Woohoo!
Not woohoo.
No?
No. It's a good year for contractors. It's not a good year for municipalities. Kind of across the board, what we're seeing is very few bidders, sometimes one, sometimes none.
Oh, that's probably not.
Contractors are very busy, and the prices are reflecting that. So when we put the estimate together, it was 2013, it's almost 2 years ago. Things were still very favorable for bid prices. They're not now. The estimate was about $2.7 million. The low bid was $3.2 million.
Oh,
So it is capped by the USDA without asking for additional money. In consulting with DPW and city manager and also the USDA, we've working with a low bidder. We weren't going to get down to the amount that we needed to, so all bids were rejected. And now we're entering into the second phase, which the USDA calls competitive negotiation. So what we do at this point is we had a meeting earlier today to kind of discuss some options on things we can trim, things we can alter. We've got some feedback from some of the bidders on their right ideas, some righter than others, on where we can trim. So what we'll do is early next week we're going to issue a post-bid addendum, which goes out to all the plan holders again with some changes in it. They will bid that work. Also, what we'll do is allow voluntary alternates, because one of the things that we're finding is schedule. A lot of contractors are very busy right now. They're not as busy in the fall. Some of them want work in the spring. So with voluntary alternates on schedule and being flexible, usually is getting the best prices. We found that on other projects that we've just taken bids on, where allowing it to go later in the fall might suit one contractor more than the other. That doesn't mean we're committing to a different schedule, but it does mean we're entertaining the idea of a different schedule if there's cost savings for the city. So I think we've identified maybe $400,000 worth of potential savings. For the most part, above the surface, you won't notice many differences. We are choosing to line a few sewers instead of replace them. There's a few things that may be, there's some manhole rehabilitation that will probably be delayed for a few years unless there's available funding to get it in now. Changing some aggregate base and some grading items and sand sub base and things like that. So before the next council meeting, which I think is May 14th, so we get numbers back probably the day before or maybe 2 days before, and then we'll be able to review those and come back on the 14th with hopefully something that fits within the budget. Alternatively, in our meeting with the USDA today, it is possible to seek additional funding. I don't know if Thad wants to talk about that.
just real quickly, and this is going to be part of the workshop anyhow, our proposed water and sewer rates. We were suggesting that we're going to need to raise them about 8.5% to accommodate this project. Worst case scenario, if we took out the maximum allowable by our bond notice of intent for our bonds, that would go from 8.5 to 9.3. But that would be much, much more than we would probably need for the project. So we don't, it's going to be probably much closer to the 8.5 than the 9.3. The good news is a couple of things. Number one, Fishbeck was able to find some potential savings that doesn't really impact at all the integrity of the project overall. And we think we will probably get the savings on the second bid, or the competitive negotiations, as they call it. And we have the fallback position, if we're still over budget, we can request additional monies from the USDA on the bonds, yeah.
And I think if we close soon, then the interest rate,
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is we initially looked at it at the interest rates were gonna be at 3.25. Now, if we close by the end of June, it's gonna be 2.75, which is a substantial savings. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're moving along as best we can, and we just had to regroup after last week.
So the project that we're going to have bid now, the competitive bid process, is that going to be the one with these attempted cost-saving measures, where we're going to line instead of replace, and then,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, and basically what we do is we take the base project that was out before, and then we find reductions in it. So we'll go back and we'll tell the contractors, all right, on this item, you're only going to do this amount of work, and this item changes to this item. So we kind of identify that for all the contractors. Because they've all put a lot of time and effort into it, so we don't want to start over and have them have to go through the process of figuring all that out again. The idea is that we give them enough description so that they can go, oh, well, this is costing $100,000 and now it only costs $60,000, then they put new numbers in. So that's the competitive negotiation phase, is what the USDA refers to it as.
Go ahead.
Mayor first?
No, go ahead.
The lines that we were going to replace, and now we're just going to, why were we replacing them?
Well, there's the one line on Linda Street, which is very deep, and then the groundwater has some minor sags in it, and the pipe is old clay, and so it kind of, the joints separate a little bit. You know, ideally that is replaced and has a nice consistent, you know, grade all the way down. With it being that deep, you know, I don't believe there's any house backup issues because it's 17 feet deep, and it's also near the top of the line. So that's one of them where, yes, it would be nice to replace it in its entirety. Given the groundwater elevation, they have to dewater to put it in. It's so deep. So lining it, there is one section, that section's about 750 feet. There's one section in the tape that we're reviewing, 40 feet of it at Beach and Linda, that has a bad sag in it. So what we'll do is we'll replace that 50-foot, 40, 50-foot section and then line through it. So we're addressing the worst of it, but the liner is also structural liner, so it's good for another, 40, 50 years. Ideally, you're not lining things that have minor sags, and none of the sags are enough. It's an 8-inch pipe, so it's a 20% sag, so there's a 2-inch sag in it. Not enough to obstruct flow, given how much flow is in there. So, ideally, you replace those with very grade on them, just for the life of it. But if you can get the structural integrity back out of it by lining it, and you don't have an issue with the backups, then it is a suitable alternative.
So there's not a possibility that it's going to sag more and break the liner?
No, the liner is an epoxy liner. When the liner goes in, it actually replaces the structure of the pipe. The entire pipe around it could erode, and you have one contiguous piece in the liner. So.
It's a good process. It's proven very effective in a lot of places.
And the other one is at Oaks, or on Main, between Cedar Creek and Oak. There's a line that crosses. That's another one that will be, instead of replacing, we'll be lining it. So.
And our thought being is that we can address that during the bridge replacement, because we're looking at, obviously, replacing that bridge and looking on Main Street, so that's on the very near horizon. It's not something that we couldn't get to for years and years.
We don't get to keep our hairy manhole.
Correct.
Darn.
Well, I believe that manhole is being replaced. I think that's one of the ones that's getting rehabbed.
Okay.
Trees need nutrients too.
What's that?
The trees need nutrients.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So hopefully 2 weeks back with better news.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
It doesn't sound horrible. Could be worse.
Well, it's only one.
It doesn't sound horrible because we fixed it.
Yeah.
Well, it's in process.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on that? Moving on to item 6, new business. 2015-16 financial yearly budget discussion, first consideration. Number 20 and 15, fee structure also. Thank you, Mike.
Good evening. Rose is having a problem with her.
I had some highlights that I wanted to go over, and then we have a number of, I come from old school, I'm going to call them slides, you can take a look at. Basically, the things that I wanted to highlight was, number one, that the millage rate is unchanged. If you look at that on tab 1, it has a millage rate of 16.3214. I believe that stayed consistent for a number of years, so that's a good thing we're not raising the millage.
We can raise that to a maximum
I have a slide of that.
Let's say it's like 17 or 18.
Thank you.
In that neighborhood, more to be raised. The general fund budget increased slightly. I believe it increased about $6,000 or $6,500, a minor increase in our expenditures. The fund balance, two things about that, it's very healthy. We have a total fund balance of $881,000. It's roughly 54% of our budget. Of that, $576,000, almost $577,000, or 65% is unassigned. And the remainder, $321,000, or 35%, is assigned. And the council's policy is to have a minimum unassigned fund balance of 20%, so we're well above that. And again, the assigned fund balance are things such as the money we have for the unfunded pension liability, the money that we're putting away for the replacement of the rescue vehicle, the turnout gear, things. Those are some of the things that would be in there. If you look at tab 23, I think it is. No, that's not. That's the wrong tab. Yeah, we'll get that on the slide. But anyhow, our tax revenue increased by over $26,000 this year.
What is the cause? Anybody?
Property tax values going up.
Okay. Makes sense.
Thank you. We're starting to rebound a little bit, but it's very, very gradual. The age-old story is it drops like a rock, and because of headwind proposal 8, can only gradually creep up. The proposed budget that I presented to council in April shows no use of fund balance. As with all of the budgets that we put together on the draft, we found a couple of things that we're going to have to tweak. Number one, we forgot to put in that up to $10,000 for the fire service at Solon Township. But on the good side, we had $5,000 in the proposed budget for the pavilion. We've already paid that. We're paying that, so we're about $5,000 off, and we forgot to put some money in for the cleanup, which is, I think we were putting in $500 for the cleanup. So, we'll just citywide cleanup.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have to tweak that a little bit, but I think we can make that work. Healthcare costs, we believe worst case we're going to have a 4% increase maximum. We won't know until next month at the next meeting of the health insurance pool. Also, in the proposed budget, we're suggesting and recommending that we start paying additional monies towards our unfunded pension liabilities, so we want to start that off with $10,000 this year, so we can get that paid off and paid down. I think that at $10,000 it would be about 12 to 15 years where we would have that paid down, and that's not taking in any consideration in terms of how our investments do. If they perform better, we'll get there much sooner. Also, in the proposed budget is funding for a strategic planning or visioning session, funding for our 5-year master plan that's required. And on page 23, we have the list of projects that we're looking at. We can go through it real quick. We're looking at paving the parking lot by the library. There's about a quarter of that that's not paved. Carpet replacement in City Hall, roof replacement on 68 South Main, veterans signs and markers, drain tiles in the cemetery. In terms of the county storm drain, we have to pay a portion of that, so we've got that upgrade. We had the gazebo at Morley Park, that's being eliminated. We have the grant match for Trout Unlimited for that project in North Park. Increase to fund balance designated for our turnout gear. Reimburse the motor vehicle fund for our rescue vehicle that we borrowed money from. Increase to the fund balance designation for our county fire truck. We need to start putting some money away for when we have to replace. We're also increasing the fund balance designation for our rescue vehicle. Not only do we have to pay back the principal on from the fund balance that we borrowed to purchase it, after that's paid off, we want to start putting money away for the new vehicle when we need it. So the thought being is that when this has reached its useful life, we'll have that money available to make a purchase. We have $1,500 for website redesign, the strategic visioning, or visioning planning session, 5 years master plan, additional payments toward our unfunded pension liability. Then we get into the different, that's general fund. One other that I want to point out to you, spread over the various funds is a 2% raise for employees. And also after this was proposed and printed, an employee came to me and said, we haven't done a wage study for over 10 years. So I'm going to take a look at that and see where we stand with wages, because we've been pretty stagnant for the last 2 years. So I just want to see how we're doing in comparison to cities that are comparable in size.
I think we've been stagnant longer than that.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I think that was a good catch. I'll be doing that. And if I think, I'll just use the MML wage survey that they have and they update on an annual basis. And if I think that has some validity, I'll bring it back to council and then get direction on what we want to do. We also have other projects in our various funds. In our major street fund, we're continuing to put away $25,000 towards our grant match for the bridge. We have pump rebuilds under the sewer fund.
No, the pump rebuild, that's the plant, it says sewer plant there.
Huh?
I'm sorry, I don't have,
The sewage treatment plant pump rebuilds. Yeah.
it is a treatment plant, we're actually at the point we have to start rebuilding pumps. They're way past their useful life.
The motors?
Motor pumps.
Okay.
At the plant, also, we're going to replace all 6 valve actuators on reactor number 1. We're going to replace a humidifier and replace and rebuild variable frequency drives. In the water fund, we have money for the SCADA system. I think we've talked about that in a previous meeting. Continued money for replacing water meters. We have that on a 4 or 5 year plan to replace all the meters in the system, which will be remote reads instead of having to roll around and walk by and get the readings. Motor pool fund, a new leaf vacuum, and then we talked about spread over the various funds is a 2% raise for employees. So those are the list of projects we have, and I already talked about when Mike was here that to accommodate our USDA project, we will see an increase of about 8.59% in our water and sewer bills to accommodate that. Again, that's predicated on coming under our budget without going back to USDA and asking for additional funds. So those are highlights. Some of the concerns we have as staff is right now we're really not able to fund the city's needs, and Tom will get into some of these a little later. I don't think I have to tell anybody the condition the streets are in. We have some real needs with our streets. We have needs with our sidewalks. Either we don't have sidewalks or they're in disrepair. We've got fire truck. We've got needs in our water and sewer systems in terms of making sure that that system continues to be viable. We've got to maintain the integrity of those systems. There's just a number of problems that we have in funding what we need. And so that might be a whole nother special workshop to talk about that. The other one is Proposal 1. If it doesn't pass, there's, I think, some ramifications for municipalities. Before they came up with Proposal 1, one of the options that was being strongly pushed in the House was to take all taxes from fuels and dedicate them to the roads. But out of those fuel taxes is money for revenue sharing for municipalities as well as money for the schools. And at that time, they were asked about what are you going to do to replace that, and they said they had no plan to replace it. They just thought the economy would get better and everybody would be okay. So, I just want to be careful about about that, because if it doesn't pass, we all know what they've done to schools and municipalities in the last 10 years. They've robbed from schools and municipalities to balance their own budget at the state level.
I think they're going to do that even if this does pass.
Very good possibility. So we have to be careful. And I don't know if it was last year or the previous year, I cautioned council too about the personal property tax. We didn't know where that was going, and that got settled. And we lost some money, but we were able to absorb that loss. I don't know what the ramifications might be in terms of how much we would lose in revenue sharing, but we can't suffer any loss in my mind. So that's a concern. The bridge and Main Street, we're putting money away for our grant match for the bridge. We think we're going to be comfortably seated or situated when that comes up. The biggest problem is Main Street.
What do we have in that fund right now?
You know what that is? We've been putting $25,000 to $50,000 a year for a while. So our goal is that we're going to have our 5% match at the time we think we'll get the funding. So that's our game plan. But again, Main Street needs to be there. And we certainly can't write a check for it. Tom is working to get that on the federal funding list. And if that's the case, we get a significant part of that as a grant match. But we would still have to go out for bonds and do that, because that entire length of Main Street from Muskegon north is in pretty dismal shape, and it's a major thoroughfare. So, that's a concern. The water and sewer fund balances are low, very low. It wouldn't take a major malfunction to pretty much destroy those fund balances. So we're going to have to continue to increase water and sewer rates just to make sure we have money available, not only just on hand for any unexpected maintenance or repair issues, but to start building up a fund where we can address all of these other needs we have in terms of water and sewer infrastructure.
I am very excited that we're starting to do that.
Well, we gotta start thinking about it.
Well, but I mean, in general, even this USDA, and I mean, it's just, our water system is held together with like duct tape and magic. I mean, it's just, I mean, it, you know, and parade to Tom and Jerry and the people who came before him that have kept basically a WPA work project still working, but it's like magical that it is. So I'm just so excited, even if it's, we all gotta write a check, to know that the water is going to keep coming out of this tap and it's going to keep going with the clean flush.
And I always consider that the cities exist and they have core missions, core responsibilities.
And
Number
this is
one,
one.
well, number one is you gotta have water. You gotta get it out of your house. The other things, you need the water and sewer. You gotta have good roads, you gotta be able to maintain them. You gotta provide for the health and safety of the community and with law enforcement, medical, fire. Unfortunately, you need an assessor to collect the taxes to run, and you have to, you know, be able to levy those taxes. Those are the core missions we have to focus on. And so that's why I'm real adamant about taking a look at our needs in terms of infrastructure, whether it's above ground or below ground, to make sure that we're keeping our commitment to this community. So that's always going to be in the forefront. The final thing that I wanted to talk about was our fund balance. We have $881,000, 54% of our budget. That means that if we didn't collect any taxes, we could operate for 6 months. Well, that appears to be healthy, and it is. A lot of communities would be very envious of what we've been able to put away and hold. But that's still, even with that amount of money, it doesn't give us a lot of flexibility in terms of using those funds to meet our needs, because our needs are so overwhelming. So we're going to have a very open, honest, and frank discussion sometime in the future about how do we meet our needs. You know, what does that mean, and how can we do that? So those are the concerns as staff sees them. And I want to just turn it over to Deb. She's got some specific information she's going to share with you and go over.
This first, what?
Which tab?
Oh,
But you just look on your
it's up
screen.
here, it was on your agenda, you can hit for your agenda. The first slide is reiterating what Thad talked about with the fund balance of $881,238, which, like you said, is 54% of our budgeted expenses. So it's just reiterating what we kind of just talked about.
The big thing is if you look at last year, we appropriated $17,000 from fund balance, and this year, again, we were proposed at zero. That might be $5,000 or something this year. But in recent years, we've been able to pare that down significantly, our reliance on fund balance.
The next one just kind of goes over our main revenue sources. The first one is state revenue sharing. Can you bring that up? You can see this is a history of our state revenue sharing from 2003. We can see where we maxed out, and then we lost it. And we're slowly recovering, but we're not near what we used to do. In 2004, we got almost $400,000, and now this year, the current year, we'll get $315,000. So that was a big hit. And then our biggest source, obviously, is the property taxes, and as Thad touched on too, they're slowly going up. You know, hopefully every year it gets a little bit better. So that is something to look forward to. This year was $26,000. Slow, but at least it was in the
Right direction.
Up area, not the down. This one is a slide. It's just our revenues and expenses over the last few years and projected for the next few years. So you can kind of see we're in a holding pattern right now. And with our fund balance too, we're hoping to keep it pretty steady.
Now that doesn't include the 10,000 we were going to add for the pension.
But does it?
Yes, that's in the budget, yes.
That wasn't sure.
Yep, that is included in the budgeted numbers already.
Okay. I was confused when you were saying about what we missed. I thought you were saying we missed that, but I thought.
No, what we forgot to budget for was that fire study of $10,000.
Oh, okay, that's the 10,000.
Yeah, so we have 5 to offset it from the pavilion, so
Got it.
we're looking at adding 5,500 right now to it. This is just another quick graph that shows the revenue and expenses, and we try to keep it as close. In the past year, we've had to take from fund balance. This year, I'm projecting that we don't. So I'm hoping that we can, within that 5,500, find that, do some adjustments somewhere else and not have to take it out, because that's not such a huge number. So.
And that's probably something that we're going to be able to just, through the year.
Trim a little here, a little there.
Yeah, a lot of times, we budget for, say, insurance, regular liability insurance, workers' comp, it'll come in lower than we expected. There's things that we budget for that come in lower, some come in higher. So for $5,500, I'm sure we can, it'll adjust out.
At the end of the year, July 1, when we sweep all the accounts, we'll have some revenues left.
Correct. Yeah. This is a quick slide too, showing that back in the day, we could rely on interest income for a little bit of income, and now it's pretty much not even worth talking about. So that's pretty
On the
depressing.
good side, we pay that.
True. This is our debt margin. What this is showing what is if we wanted to go for bonds, this is what we have available. We have $5.6 million is our legal debt margin. That means we have that much available if we wanted to bond for roads or
So
capital
we
improvements.
could bond for all of Main Street if we had to.
We have up to $5.6 million.
And that would,
That does not include these USDA bonds, because those are revenue bonds that are being paid for out of the water, sewer.
And I'm not suggesting we shouldn't try to go for grants. But
Right, but this is just an option, and that tells you what we have available.
we don't have to let it fall apart.
Right.
No, and it is an option, and that's what this is really showing, is that we do have some options if we want to pursue it. There are some bonds that will be coming off and paid off in the near future.
Yep, 2016 we have some, and then again in 2020.
How much is the sewer one is 2016, right? 2016?
No, that's the transportation bonds. Yep.
That was to redo Muskegon Street East.
Oh, right.
Yep. So we have $5.6 million available. That doesn't mean we have to use any of it, part of it.
Sure.
But it is an option that we can think about for doing projects.
It's that knowing that you don't have, you don't want it to fall apart. I feel like sometimes we wait until things fall apart.
We talked a little bit about our millage. Currently, the city millage is 15.0642. The max allowed is 17.5. So that's another option. We have 2.49. If we wanted to do an additional millage, we could. So that shows you what's available there too as another option.
Sure.
1 mill gets us about $75,000.
Okay. Per year.
At current taxable value. Of course, if that goes up, that number will also go up. Yeah.
Per year. Yeah.
This shows our current, for this budget, the ad valorem taxable values and the DNR code that we have and the industrial code. So our projected revenue is the 1.109. This is the current, off our current year.
And this is where it shows you the difference, where we've increased by $26,000
Yeah.
in tax revenue.
And this is just a quick slide that it touched on also our pension unfunded liability. When we got rid of the LVFA, we took that money and said, and it's in our it's assigned for that, the $175,000. So that brings our, right now, our unfunded pension liability to $193,000. So I talked to MERS, and they had said if we put $10,000, they'll give it, at the end of June, we'll get a new statement from them. But as of right now, they said that would be a good estimate, that if we put $10,000 away, it could, it'll help get that paid off sooner. And like Thad had mentioned too, depending on the,
Investments.
right, that can, because we took a big hit on that, just like we did everywhere else, and if that starts to rise up, then, we won't need as much. But that's where we stand right now.
I'd just like to say that that was Manager Taylor's suggestion, whatever, to, when we got that big lump of money, instead of saying, let's figure out, because we all would love to have new sidewalks and fix the water and so on. He said, oh, no, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And that was some wonderful forethought on his part to say, this is what needs to be done. And we're in a very good position because he said to do that.
I know I went over those quite quickly, but were there any questions on anything at all?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go
ahead. Going back for just a minute, Tom, on the unfunded liability, do we pay any other way into that, or is it just going to be the $10,000 per year or whatever we put into it?
No, the pension system, they do an actuarial study, and they say, every year they say you have to put in this amount, whatever that amount is.
Okay.
And the city has historically paid that amount. And we're fortunate we've done that because that's the way a lot of communities have gotten in problems with their pension, is that they don't make those payments. So ours is quite solid. We make the payments, plus employees are paying into that too.
So do we make that payment you're talking about plus the $10,000?
Exactly.
Okay, that's
That's why we said it was an additional $10,000, above and beyond what we normally do.
Okay, I like that. Backing up just a little, if we can go back some more here on this. I'm curious about our millage. How does Headley affect what we actually are able to get from the millage that we have in place? I know a little bit about it from down in the library, but it still baffles me sometimes. What is our millage right now that we charge, and then how is it reduced by Headley? Okay, try to make it simple for me, darling.
It's not very simple.
I know it's not.
Yeah. There's a Headley rollback, and I'm not that conversant in it, but it has to be, there's a formula that the assessor does and rolls it back. The bottom line is you're only allowed to go up rate of inflation or whatever percent in taxes. I can't remember what that percentage, rate of inflation or that. And that's your cap. You can't do anything more than that in terms of raising your property values, which dovetails with your millage rate, which then gives you how much revenue you get from your.
So I saw that amount is this year again 1.016. So that means that we can only increase our property values by that much.
Right.
Wow. And that's what gave us $26,000 last year, and probably about that much this year.
A little bit less than that last year, but it was 26.
But again, when you just use a big number, if you assume property values went down 20%, you can see how long it takes you to get back to even.
Yes, exactly.
That's the
Forever.
Tortoise in the hare.
Let's see, where else was I looking here? Going back to the graph, the bar graph, Tom, blue and green with the red line through it.
Which one?
Come on. Come on, there it
The
is.
comparison of general fund level revenues, expenditures.
Yes.
That one.
Now, I looked at that and I thought, really, this is the lowest we've been in revenues. Am I reading that right? Am I not seeing that right? From the 2008 until now, this 2014 year was the lowest that we've ever been.
Well, that's, we repeat.
I thought we were kind of recovering. I guess that's
We are, but again, it's very, very
very
slow.
slow.
Yeah, the revenue sharing dropped,
Yeah, if you
taxes dropped.
There was a hit from multiple. The state took a big yank.
Well, I thought we kind of recovered from that. I thought the worst would be back in 2009 or 10.
No,
No.
it continued on. At one time, and there's a slide in here that we were getting almost 400,000 a year in revenue sharing, and I think it went down to, at one point, 250,000 a year.
It's like the schools, they took a massive.
So it takes a while to recover from that, and we're not nearly to the point of, in terms of revenue sharing, back to the levels that we were at. And again, we're not getting the interest income,
Right.
which is a big revenue hit. And then, again, even though we've been coming back on our property taxes because the values creep up, it's a steep hill that's got to come up.
Yeah, I get it.
There was also kind of a, I mean, that's part of the housing bubble. The property tax values went really probably higher than they should have. Like they inflated, and then when they crashed, they went lower than they really probably should have. So to come back to even of what is, really what your property value is going to take a while to.
And I had a couple of questions on the tab 23 that we went over. Coming from the top on the paving, the parking lot, I know it needs it, but I'm just thinking that if they're serious about trying to move the fire barn, I don't know about that being a really wise move right now for us to think about doing that.
Well,
And I know that there's not any serious thing happening, but I would just hate to see us spend $17,000 on something that's going to be torn up in a few years.
well, a couple of things. Since I've been here, I've heard numerous times that the city wanted that part paved. The concern I have is the city only has four parking lots. And that parking lot, in my mind, is going to be especially needed. In fact, when the Planning Commission approved the brewing company's site plan, obviously the brewery couldn't put all the required parking on their lot.
Right.
So they looked at off-street parking, and we had to go so far as that parking lot to count as available parking for their needs. Now, if you throw in the library, if and when that goes up, if you throw in the amphitheater, if and when that goes up, if you throw in the community building, if and when that goes up, the need, in my mind, is going to grow substantially. So that's why I think that parking lot needs to be finished to give us the capacity to meet the needs in the downtown area.
Well, there's no doubt we need more parking, for
Right.
sure, decent parking.
Right.
Well, that's just something that went through my brain. I don't know
I had a question on that as well, because again, that was part of my question. Wouldn't it make more sense to wait a year or two and see how this fire department moving the fire barn thing shakes out?
Well, we got a couple of things going on right now. We have that study with Solon Township. We don't know what shape that's going to take. The other thing is at the last community building development team, Jeff Gus gave me some plans that he had drawn up, nothing elaborate for a new fire building, and he said that was going to be $500,000 to $600,000, not counting anything else, if it was located down there in that lot. So there's a lot of things to talk about, so I just don't know when that's going to come, and
You hate to wait.
I hate to wait, and plus I'm not fully convinced that putting the fire department there is the best place to put it, because of when you only have 4 city parking lots to begin with, and you give up probably your biggest one,
Right.
Very
Good
restrictive.
point.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I'm with Dan. I saw that and went, I just don't want to do it and then destroy it.
Right.
That's not.
Okay, I'm trying to hurry through my questions, I'm sorry, I just got a lot. The second item there, the carpet replacement. Now, is that the tile replacement, or is that really talking carpet?
Carpet.
And what's wrong with the carpet?
All you have to do is look around and you can see you can see where it's worn. And my office is a good example where it's raised up and it moves. And it's taken a beat, and my understanding it's been here for a long time.
Is there anything, well, it doesn't appear that worn in this room, in my mind.
Well, if you go out and walk that hallway and walk the office areas and out in here, you'll pretty evident.
Okay. Well, but this is something, is this budgeted already, or is this just something, it is? Okay.
That was this year's budget.
No.
No, the tile was
The tile.
this year's budget, and that's coming within the next couple of weeks.
So the carpet was last year's?
No,
It's
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 proposed in
new,
this.
it's proposed for this year.
Right.
Should be posing the
And that
general.
was, again, that was one of mine. I really felt like, couldn't we get another year or two out of this?
Should we go take a field trip and look at it?
One at a time, please.
Okay. I thought the same thing.
I have more, but I may have a comment on the same thing, I don't know.
I feel like perhaps we should take a field trip around City Hall and go look at this carpet.
All right, right now? Mayor says no. Okay. I talked to Marty today, so I'm trying to understand the fire trucks, and I guess this is as good a time as any to try to cover that. So if I'm trying to get this straight, we have the Expedition, right, that we just bought, and we have a fund that we've set in place to have money enough to replace that down the road. We have two city trucks. Now, we have the older city truck. Marty, help me if I get messed up here. We have the older city truck, and then we have the newer city truck. And the older city truck, we're working somehow, we have a fund working to replace that, if I am getting this right. And then we have the county truck that, do we have a third fund that we're saving money in to pay for that if we want it at the end of its tenure in 2026? Yeah, so it feels to me like we got three different funds going for three different trucks, but I don't know that I've got it straight.
We have, if you look at the rescue vehicle, we borrowed that money to buy it
Right.
from the equipment fund. So we're paying that back,
12,000.
Yeah,
right?
and that's going to take about 4 years,
About 4 or 5.
4 or 5 more years on that. And that'll take care of that. And then are we going to continue that fund to start paying, to get money for a new
The
one
next one?
to replace
what
it?
the 10,000
That's the
is.
10,000.
That's the 10,000 that we're
Okay.
putting in away so that will be there when we need to replace it.
Okay. Now, the truck replacement line item that was 12,000 and now it's jumped to 30,000, that's for which truck?
Probably the
It's
combination
the
of all.
20,000 for the county, and we're putting away 20,000 for the county and 10 for the rescue vehicle.
Okay, that's all together.
30,000 goes to putting away for
Okay.
the future purchase of
So
both of those.
those two trucks are in one line item.
Correct.
Very good.
The other line
Thank
item
you.
for 22,000 is 12,000 to pay Tom's motor pool deck.
Yeah?
And 10,000 we're putting away for turnout gear, because if you remember this year, we had to
Sure.
shell out $50,000 at once for that. So we're putting away 10,000 so that in 5 years, when that equipment we just bought is gone, we have the 50,000 and we don't have to write one,
Okay, good.
take-
That's good planning.
So we're being
Yeah.
proactive
Right.
now
What
for
makes
these
it-
items.
What makes it confusing on tab 23, he gives a breakdown of that, but on his budget, it's a lump sum.
Right.
Yes.
Correct,
It's like-
yeah.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
And then, just to clarify, the county truck is the one that everybody, all the cities in the county put into, and then every 15 years or something.
Not
each-
everybody in the county belongs to the fire commission program like,
Okay.
I'm gonna say 85–90% do.
Okay.
Plainfield does not, but they've expressed an interest in getting in the program.
But I just clarifying, that's
What it
that
does-
program, right?
What it does is like I explained to Mr. Clark this afternoon, it's like a lease program, and we pay the monies in, and it goes into a pool. Excuse me, and every 16, 18 years, our rotation comes around again, and
we get a truck.
We get a new truck placed in, and I'm just gonna grab a number out of the blue here. Right now, it's around 190,000. I suspect when our time is due, it'll be somewhere around $200,000 towards the purchase of a new truck. If we're gonna spend $350,000 to get a truck that we meets our needs and suits our requirements, then we have to come up with $150,000. And that's part of what we're doing now. And again, along with that, at the end of our rotation in 2026, we will be offered to purchase that truck for a prorated formula. And I, by no means, shape, or form, understand the formula. But it's a certain amount of dollars divided by appreciation, divided by this and
Mileage and,
subtract from this. And historically, we have, as a city, bought them last couple of trucks from the county. If we decide not to purchase that truck, then it goes out on, and I don't want to use the word Craigslist, but it goes out on the internet for purchasing through different communities, maybe even out of state. But it's been, historically, it's something that we know what the machine is been through.
On that, helps our ISO rating to retain.
Okay. That's an important thing to know.
What was that?
That helps our ISO rating
Oh,
to
yes,
retain.
tremendously, yes.
The line item above that for the capital,
Or you in the?
we're still in the fire department. If you're looking at that, it's tab 8.
Well, we're gonna go through each one of them, so if you.
Oh, okay, I was trying to include it in this because of that discussion, but we can come to that later.
Unless you want to address it now.
It's whatever suits the council.
Go ahead then.
Well, I was just curious about what the capital expense then is used for. In talking to Chief Fraser, he said that the hoses, nozzles,
Air tanks, probably. Is that part of the time?
anything that had an expense over $5,000.
What was included in our capital CIP plan?
The capital expense is the 22,000, which is what we just talked about, the 10 for turnout gear and
Okay.
and the 12 for.
And the turnout gear was the one that we had to spend all the money on because we lost the grant because of
Okay,
the
thank you.
federal sequester.
That was the year.
And we couldn't put in for the grant until,
They were outdated.
well, right, but we were supposed to get this big, like 90% matching grant or whatever, and it was the federal government sequester during the
That
grant.
was the year the government pulled a hat trick and they sequestered and then they shut down and then.
And we couldn't put in for the grant because they were closed, and then when they opened back up, the grant window had closed.
Yeah.
And then we're on the hook for the whole thing.
So now we're trying to put money away each
Right.
year so that we don't have to pay 50 grand like we
Now,
have to.
would that make us then ineligible for grants like that?
No, that is
Okay.
not a fault of ours. In fact, just maybe briefly, we just submitted a $30,000 grant for firefighter and citizen safety, which consists of 1,500 smoke detectors of 2 different kinds and some laptops and stuff.
Excellent.
And we just submitted that within the last week or so.
And that didn't hurt us that when they sequestered, because we didn't request it, or
Right.
because of the timing.
No, I was just saying, my question is, do we get penalized if we put money away? I mean, if we're
Well,
proactive.
I might turn that over to Deb, but in my belief, no.
Okay.
That's
And she's
not-
shaking her head no, and I would
We're
believe you.
doing that, we know we're putting that money away for that, but
They don't know that that's necessarily.
but we're not gonna use that money for a truck. We're just doing it to cover ourselves, but if
Sure.
they look at our,
Okay, good.
does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
Okay. What portion of the budget are we in now?
We were just,
Going down the
Wherever, well, I was just backing up to what we had kind of gone over already, so I'm done for
well,
now.
the next thing I wanted to talk about then is I wanted Tom to go over his information on our sidewalks and streets, and he'll talk about